Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Angela Cudger, and we are continuing our conversation with the Universal Laws of Success. And tonight we are going to be covering the law of relativity. So, as soon as you jump on here, let me know that you can hear me, let me know that you can see me, and let me know that everything is all good. So, let me know that you can hear me, and let me know that you can see me. And let me know that everything is all good. Hey, one peaceful lady, thank you for being here. We're going to continue our conversation about the universal laws of success. Now, if you're watching on IG, just know that over on Facebook, LinkedIn, and some other places, YouTube, we have slides and we have information for you to get. So you have the opportunity to actually see the slides. Hey, Clovid, thank you for being here. Hey, Miss 1080, thank you for being here as well. Okay. As soon as you can hear me and see me on Facebook, let me know so that I can continue so that I can move forward with the actual content. Okay. So um, as soon as you know that you can hear me and see me, let me know, and I will start. Um, I will move forward with the content. Okay. All right. So we're going to be covering the universal laws of success. We're covering the law of relativity tonight. And so, again, if you are watching on um, Instagram, just know that there are slides on Facebook, there's slides on YouTube, there's slides on LinkedIn and some other places. And as soon as you jump on here from Facebook, let me know that you can hear me, that you can see me. Awesome. Okay. So Facebook has a little bit of a delay tonight. As soon as you jump on here as well, make sure that you share this out so that someone else can get this information. We are talking about the law of relativity tonight. Everything is relative. So as soon as you jump on here, besides letting me know that you can hear me and see me, let me know that you understand that every single thing that we go through is relative, and it has to do with our perspective. Tonight we're going to be covering some pretty cool things concerning the law of relativity. Now, I will tell you, the law of relativity gets a bad rap sometimes. The law of relativity is the law. Last night we talked about the law that is the easiest to do. And tonight we're going to talk about the law that no one really is all that fond of. But this is the number one law that will show us or give us access to our higher selves so that we can manifest at our greatest and our highest and our best. Okay. As soon as you jump on here, please share this out so that someone else can get the information, and then type shared in the comments. So before we get started, really quickly, there's a couple reminders. There's always a couple of reminders. If you want affirmations and information concerning the universal laws, if you want digital recipe cards and all this other great stuff, you want to text hashtag affirm to or hashtag legacy to 404-738-6301. That's 404-738-6301. Okay. And so we want to make sure that other people have access to this information. And we want to make sure that if you're someone who needs these things, this inspiration, that you let other people know and that you let us know by texting us directly. Also, if you want the slides of this content, you can get that by letting me know and texting hashtag affirmed or hashtag affirm or hashtag legacy to 404-738-6301. All right, so let's jump into the content. The last other thing I'm going to say is that cohort 33 for legacy is open for enrollment, you guys. Oh my God, I'm so grateful that cohort 33 is open for enrollment. Okay. And so to date, Legacy has given away over $500,000 in scholarships, grants, rebates to servicemen and women. And so we have grants available for cohort 33. If you are someone who's thinking about becoming a health coach, if you are someone who needs access to a health coach, check out our program and look at the content that's in the program and speak to an admissions representative. You can do that by going to discoverlegacy.info. Everything is relative, and we're going to get into it tonight. So I want you to walk away with a different perspective concerning this law. When we're talking about the universal laws of success, we are going to be covering the law of relativity tonight. And like I said, this is everyone's, you guys know I had to do it, right? This is everyone's least favorite law. No one really loves the universal law of relativity, but this is the only law that will give us access to our higher selves for manifestation. So when we can hone the energy from this law and understand how this law works in tandem with the law of rhythm, in tandem with the law of correspondence, meaning what we mirror out is what comes back to us, and understanding the law of rhythm, how things go up and down, right? And so we want to make sure that we understand these laws. Someone says, congratulations and many, many more successful, abundant, and filled accomplishments the journey. But thank you so much. Let me know your name in the comments, since this just says Facebook user. So let me know your name and who sent that amazing message. Okay. So we're covering the law of relativity tonight. If you've never heard of universal laws, these are laws that govern the universe. They are immutable, they are intrinsic, they are unchanging, unyielding, and no matter what planet you go to in this universe, these laws govern us. The beautiful thing about these laws is the information that these laws teach is also intuitive for us. So we naturally know how to act inside of these laws. Where you find massive, right, consistent success, right? Where we find massive, consistent success, you will always find someone who's living inside of these laws, even if they cannot, even if they don't understand these laws, even if they can't explain to you what these laws mean, or they've never heard of these laws. These laws are intuitive, so a person doesn't necessarily have to know every single thing about these laws, but understanding them helps them understand where they need to shift in order to manifest even more. So when we're speaking about the law, the universal law of relativity, one of the things that we want to be aware of is that this law of relativity states that we are inclined to compare things in the world. But in reality, everything is neutral. Relativism exists in all things. And in the end, meaning comes down to our perspective and perception. Everything is in relation to something else. Notice that it says everything is in relation to something else. It did not say every person is in relation to someone else, right? So, although we are inclined to compare ourselves to other people, what we can do within this law is compare our situation to other people that will allow us to propel ourselves, but not the person themselves, because each person is their own divine being, their own soul. They're on their own journey down here on this planet in this lifetime. And so we cannot compare ourselves to other people, but we can certainly look at their situations. And one of the things you're going to learn is that when we actually look at other people's situation and have a relative like standard point for someone else's situation, it also teaches us what we need to be doing concerning the law of relativity and ourselves. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight as well. And so when we're looking at this, we want to be aware that the universal law of relativity has quite a few things that we need to know. It's also known as the everything is relative law. Everything in our lives, right? We don't get to. One of the things I always say when a person says, do you like this or do you like that, or asks for my opinion concerning something that I've never encountered, something I've never experienced, or something I've never tried. One of the things that I always say is, I really can't form an opinion because I've never lived that. So my nothing concerning that thing has ever been impressed upon my subconscious mind. So I don't allow myself, and I'm really great at trying to control my thoughts, but I don't allow myself to have an opinion about someone or something I've never experienced. So a person that gossips around me won't get anything, especially if it's someone I don't know, right? Or it's a situation that I'm outside of, or something that I'm unaware of, right? So if it's something that I've never experienced, in order for me to generate a thought, it just exists. If I've never experienced it, it just exists. right? It's not relative to anything. This is the law of relativity. Now, the moment I have something else to compare it to, then it becomes relative. Then it becomes related to my experience that was comparable to the thing that someone has mentioned to me, right? And so when we're thinking about this law, every single thing in our life just exists until we have a point of reference to actually compare it to, or it doesn't exist at all if there's no point of reference to compare it to, right? So say, for example, if someone says, what do you think about Mars? I've never been. I just know what they teach us in books. I've never been. I don't have a point of reference. I haven't been to other planets so that I can compare them to Earth, right? So that particular concept concerning me just is. I don't have an opinion about something I've never experienced, right? I can't with confidence, and you'll learn that the law of relativity has a lot to do with how confident we are. I cannot with confidence use that law concerning being on another planet because I've never been on one, right? I can't form an opinion, right? And so this law states that everything is relative. Write that in the comments. Everything is relative. Everything is relative. We must experience a challenge or a resistance in order for us to have a frame of reference and understanding of success. We must experience a challenge or some form of resistance in order for us to have a frame of reference for success in any form, right? The expression of our emotions and the shifting of our thoughts allow the universe to express itself through us. Every single thing is relative, okay? Challenges are necessary for bringing growth and fulfillment in our lives. So, where you find no challenges, no frame of reference, that is not such a thing here, right? I know in a song by an artist by the name of Jessie J, there is it's a song called Who You Are, right? And if you've never listened to Jessie J, she's someone that's gone through a ton of challenges, and so she's a story worth looking up, right? Jesse, and then the initial J at the end. But there is a YouTube video where she sings in a New York subway, and the hook part of that song tells a lot about the law of relativity. The hook part of the song says, tears don't mean we're losing, everyone is bruising. Tears don't mean we're losing, everyone is bruising. That is the law of relativity, right? So that we know, how can we know what true healing feels like if we've never gone through trauma, if we've never gone through anything? I'll tell you one thing I've encountered. How many of you have ever encountered a person who you perceive, careful with our words, who we perceived has never gone through anything, or who we perceive has had an incredible life and has never gone through anything? How many of you have ever encountered someone like that? Right? How many of you have ever, she says, no test, no testimony. How many of you have ever, by show of hands or saying that's me in the comments, have ever met someone who you perceived has never gone through anything, right? You think they've never gone through anything. We assume that they're kind of just floating through life and everything comes easy for them. Because there's a lot of people that make life look easy. But this law tells you that no one born here has an easy life, not one. In order for expression of the Most High, in order for God to express himself, herself, itself, divine intelligence, right? Infinite energy through us, we must be able to meet challenges. We must be able to meet challenges. So tonight, I want you to shift your perspective on how you see people, things, and situations, right? Don't let social media fool you. There's a lot more behind the scenes and behind the smile, right? I love how you put that, Dr. Tiffany, right? Don't let them fool you. Everyone wants to show you their high reel, but every single one of us is at bat down here. And a lot of people are striking out, right? And so one of the things that we want to be aware of is that this law is proof positive that that is true. That and the law of rhythm, where there's peaks and valleys, low tides and high tides in everyone's life, right? This lets us know that no matter who you encounter down here, they are here to encounter failure. Now, it is how we perform, how we perceive, and how we act in the failure that then allows the universe to grant us access to our higher selves. Hey, Dr. Cat, how are you? I hope everything's going well. And so when we're looking at this universal law of success called the law of relativity, we understand that in order to be granted access to our higher selves, that every single thing down here is relative, and that everything is relative to a frame of reference, to a point of reference. And in many cases, that is challenges that we endure. So, what the law of relativity is calling you to do is to fail farther, fail faster, fail harder. Because the more that you do that, we know that the law of rhythm also states that there's this equal part of this, of the same energy that we've experienced. So when we have had traumas, when we have had issues, on the other side of that is the absolute opposite. But we must be able to gain access to our higher selves so that we stay in a state of bliss, so that we're able to access who we truly are and be granted this access to the next level, right? And so now that we understand that no matter who we are, we're going to meet challenges down here, the law of relativity helps us understand that there really is no such thing as failure. Yes, there are challenges. Yes, there are some things that we are able to get ahead in, and some situations it's challenging to make headway in. But in reality, there are no failures. And the universal law of relativity points that out. Okay. And so it says these challenges are necessary for our growth, and these challenges are necessary to fulfill our lives, right? How we respond determines if we're able to move on to the next best phase of our lives. The most common lesson when we're looking at the law of relativity is not necessarily how we circumvent challenges and how we navigate our way around challenges, but the most common lesson is unconditional love here. How many of you guys have ever seen someone post something about love, or they try to explain love, and they explain it from a perspective that has to do with material things, that has to do with a certain kind of feeling or emotion? How many of you have ever seen people explain love in this way, or perceive the energy of love in this way? There are a lot of people that think that gifts are love. There are a lot of people that might think that acts of service show that they're being loved, right? There are a lot of people that feel like this is what love is. Love is the highest vibration, right? And I want to be clear. Somebody says, "Oh, yes, yeah." So when we're looking at this, she says, "I have." Yes, I've seen it a lot. There are a lot of people who feel like when things are, and don't get me wrong on this, right? I love gifts just as much as anybody else. I love being treated with the highest care and concern as much as anybody else. But I do not equate those things to love. I call them what they are. They are gifts. They are acts of service. They are what they are, right? There is a name for them. That name is not love, right? A thing, right? When we're talking about a vibration or a frequency, that cannot be boxed inside of a tangible thing, right? Remember in the beginning when we talked about the laws of vibration and we talked about frequencies, we talked about the fact that there was an infinite number of vibrational frequencies, right? And so what people describe as vibrating higher or lower is something that does exist, but at the same time, we must understand that alignment is key. Not necessarily vibrating higher than someone, or notice when someone is vibrating lower. It's about aligning our vibration with the thing we want to manifest and the life that we truly seek. Love is also this way. It is a vibrational form. It is not a pair of shoes, right? It is not a trip to the Grand Cayman Islands, right? That's not love. Those things somebody might tie those things to how they express love, but that's not love, right? We can't really contain a vibration into a tangible thing or a physical thing. And so when we're looking at this, the law of relativity states that the most common lesson here is unconditional love. The reason that lesson becomes the most challenging is because we try to wrap what is a vibration, one of the highest vibrations, we try to wrap that into a thing. We try to box that into something. And when we compare it, because this also goes back to the law of correspondence, the moment we say, within me and within my being and within my truth, a pair of shoes and a box of chocolates equals love, that has to be mirrored back to me, and that is not unconditional. I receive that from the person when they feel like being loving towards me, right? And so that is one of the reasons why when we're talking about the law of relativity, it's the biggest challenge is unconditional love. For people to not only exude it for themselves, so they radiate it back out, and you'll see why this is true for the law of relativity, not only so that people can exude this for themselves, but also so that it can radiate back out and it can be mirrored back to them. Does everybody understand that? Let me know that you understand this in the comments, right? So she says, all the time, I've seen that. I have, yes, they think that shoes and chocolates and I put your bag away, ma'am. Love yourself, buy yourself a bag. Okay, great. That's not unconditional love, right? It is a vibration that is devoid of any tangible or personal thing, okay? And that is the reason why it takes unconditional love for the self to keep moving forward in spite of trauma, in spite of the need to heal, right? It takes that concerning the law of relativity. Law of relativity says we're all going to face it. Every single thing is relative. And how we perform in what we perceive as the failure, how we perform grants us access to the next level. It grants us access to our highest self, which embodies unconditional love. So she says, good evening. It's a pleasure to join you for the opportunity to listen to this perspective of relativity laws in today's world. Thank you so much for being here. Please put your name if you can, if you have an opportunity to. Someone says, love is a behavior and an interaction between two or more people or things. Example, by humans and animals. Yes, it is an energy that can be exuded, right? But we can't box it into a person, place, or thing. The moment that we do that, when people say, okay, let me give you an example of that. When people say, I love this, how many people on here, we're gonna be honest for a quick second. How many people on here have a physical type when they're dating or they're looking to fall in love with someone? How many people have a physical human type, right? It could be an animal too, a type of dog or a type of cat or a type of pet that you like. How many people have a type? And the moment that time to tell you, if just write in the comments, that's me, right? That's me, that's me. Say that's me, right? If that's you, she said, I used to, right? Be honest, okay? Because this is why we cannot even tie love to a human being, right? We can exhibit things that show that we care and that we're in partnership and that we have some form of commitment in terms of these things, and we're wanting to express love to someone, right? But when we're talking about tying it to something physical, the moment that physical thing doesn't show up, or dare I say, that person's physical features change, we hear it all the time. People fall out of love. Fall out of love. So that's not love. That can't be it, right? That we try to, and the moment we do, the law of correspondence says that we have to mirror that back and draw that in, right? Even if that form of love or that person or that type of animal or that type of pet or whatever, even if that being mirrored back to us and that being the thing that we attract is something that can be detrimental to us. We still try to tie it to love because it looks a certain way, because it feels a certain way, because we feel like it should act a certain way. And so I want to be really clear on what love is, right? So for me, like when I tell someone that I love them, there's never a need for them to say it back, ever. They can choose to if they want to, but I say, in your presence, this is the vibration that I hold for you. I love you in your presence. When I am exchanging energy with you, this is the vibration that I hold for you. And I understand that yours may not match mine, or yours might match mine at different times. So your love might come through a little bit differently, but my vibration hasn't shifted. That is what I exude and feel for you, right? So I say I love you in a very, very different way, right? And I'm going to tell you what happens to the people who are able to hear this, right? They're able to say, I've never had that kind of love where it was unconditional. It wasn't based on me saying it back. It wasn't based on me saying it first, but it just is. That is love. It doesn't come any other way. We might think that it does, but it really doesn't. When we really think about it, it sets us free to just love in spite of whatever, because we understand that the laws, we are all subject to these laws, and because of that, not one of us is going to love or exhibit love perfectly all the time, not one of us. And so when we understand this concept, then we can use the law of relativity to look at people's situations in relation to our own, but not the person themselves, right? And so as we continue to look at this, right? And if you're watching on IG, just know that there are slides and that people are watching the slides over on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and some other places. So you'll see I'm reading the slides to you so you can have the information too. Really quickly on IG, I'm going to run to the comments. She says, when you connect your love to an item, person, circumstance, then you're in trouble when that thing or person is taken away from you. Absolutely. Absolutely. When the moment it changes, I kind of fell out of love with it. I bet you did, because that wasn't love. That was something else. That was something else. And a plethora of words come up. Codependency, I don't know, but it's not love. Love it isn't. Okay. The moment we understand the concept of love, we understand that no one else needs to say it back to us. It'd be great if they did, but it's not tied to that. It is just what we carry. It's what we exude, and it's what has to. Based on the law of correspondence, I don't have to wait for you to say it back. You have to mirror it back to me. That is law. That is law. And if you don't, the universe assumes that this connection that we have, there's a hole between us, and it's going to sever the tie. I don't have to worry about it. We just vibrate away from one another. Not higher, not lower, but in alignment with our next best place, right? I'm not going to get into that with relationships. So it says, according to this law, there are no setbacks. According to the law of relativity, there are no setbacks. There are no failures. There is only growth. There is only growth. This is training to be the best version of ourselves. We live a life of confidence as opposed to playing the victim. It takes unconditional love for us to be confident even when something doesn't go our way, for us to be confident in our purpose, right? This is the law. And even if someone can't tell you that this is how they're living and this is what they're doing, where you see massive success, you see them intuitively living inside of this law. You see them not allowing people, places, things, circumstances, or situations to shake their faith. You see them not allowing anything to change their vibration. You see them staying in alignment no matter what that takes. If that means putting your phone on do not disturb, if that means saying, please don't send me these kinds of things, if that means setting boundaries, the law of relativity calls for us to set boundaries. We absolutely must. We absolutely must set boundaries concerning this law, because one of the things that you're going to get is you're going to get people You're going to get specifically people, but you're going to get situations and things that try to maybe rub off on you, that try to play the victim so much that it then puts a challenge or a strain on your ability to have a fruitful relationship with that person or in that situation. And so this is also the law of relativity being reflected back to us, calling us to say, what perspective will you carry concerning this? What perspective will you carry concerning this? And how will you shift? Because we know, based on the law of attraction and the law of vibration, we know that we are the sum of the energies of the people that we allow around us. And so when we're around people who constantly have issues, who constantly have something going on, who constantly are not in a winning season ever, we know with the law of rhythm that simply isn't true. If the sun for that person never comes out, you're going to be the fourth or fifth person around them whose sun is going to stop coming out, right? The law of rhythm states that when we're in a valley state, it is up to us to shift our perspective in order to get back to our peak state. We determine when the valley ends. And now you know, in tandem with the law of relativity, that this has to do with your ability to grow. So now if you see someone in a valley state that just wants to stay there, now don't get me wrong, we want to make sure that we acknowledge the emotions concerning whatever state that we're in. Live in that emotion, right? Allow, like we covered last night, allow your energy to move within that kind of motion. Allow it to do so. If you need to grieve, grieve. If you need to laugh and stay in bliss for a while, do that too. But the moment, if you're in an emotion that you are perceiving as negative, or one that is perceived as a setback, or one that is perceived as challenging, we want to make sure that we're moving through this energy as quickly and efficiently as possible, but also acknowledging how we feel. Okay. And so when we're looking at this, when we're around people that seem like everything is a challenge, the whole world is against them, that is the law of relativity calling to us to determine how we will handle that situation. Because if we're not able to release it, then we will soon be someone who is a victim of whatever it is they're trying to pour out on us. So we must be aware of how this law operates and how it works. Okay. And so it says our perspective and our reaction to these challenges shape who we are. We are constantly putting out vibrations, we're constantly attracting in, we are floating in this inexhaustible, rich substance that allows us to constantly manifest on a dime, always manifesting. We should wake up every day saying, bless this day. What opportunities are coming to me? Right? Give me inspired action to take, right? How we covered the other night. Give me inspired action to take so that I can stay inside the law, so I can live inside the law. Give me some kind of inspired action to take today towards greater opportunities. I'm ready for it. Right? And the moment we speak these words supercharge and they change our situation. And so we said this law shows up for us as lessons through others living lessons inside of this law. And so I just kind of covered that. And then always honor the emotions, but move on quickly. Don't stay there. And then it says the law allows us to harness the energy of failing bigger, faster, and harder. So you'll see people who seem like they have this tremendous bounce back. It is because they allowed themselves to not stay down when in what they perceived as a low season or in what they perceived as a valley season. Okay. So when we're looking at this, and we're talking about how it affects our health, wealth, and destiny, there's a few questions that I want us to begin to ask ourselves concerning this law. One question is, what is the meaning I'm giving to my life? What is the meaning I'm giving to my life? Right? What does my life mean to me? How does that relate to the lives of other people? Do I think that my life is not the best? Do I have a frame of reference for that? Here, you know what? I heard a friend of mine and I, a girlfriend of mine and I were having a conversation. And we were talking about just things in general. And one of the things that she brought up, she said, have you ever heard, and you guys can say, yes, I have in the comments. She said, have you ever heard somebody say, I'm a good person, I'm a good man, or I'm a good woman? Have you ever heard somebody say that? You know, and so I told her, yeah, I've heard people say that or whatever. And she said, I always ask them, compared to what? You're a good man or a good woman compared to who? Right? What's your frame of reference for good father? What's your frame of reference for? And I'm asking these questions because I want you to think about the how you look at your life and how you perceive what you deserve and how you perceive how you think the world sees you, right? How we look at how the world sees us, right? So someone might say, like I had someone say, well, I'm an incredible dad. I do, all of these things. Although I'm divorced, I do all of these things for my children. And I said, those are fatherly things. Do you tell them that their mom's a great mom because she makes them breakfast or takes them to the movies like you did? Like, what's your frame of reference concerning this? That's just parenting. You don't get a badge for that. You procreated. You don't get anything special for doing that. Do you give her something special for doing that? Probably not, right? Or if she did it, it wouldn't seem special. No, right? Everything is neutral concerning the law of relativity. So I try to think in terms of that. So when someone says something like, I'm incredible, or I'm this or that, in terms of what? Like, what's your frame of reference? Can you share that with me? Compared to who? Compared to what? What situation gives proof positive that you're this incredible, mind blowing person full of use that you say you are, right? And I really ask these questions because I want the person, I know they have a frame of reference, but I'd like to hear it. I just want to hear why you think I should jump on that bandwagon to feel like you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? Because in many cases, we almost always find a person who, you know, thinks that they're really doing a lot, but they're really not. They're doing some things, and to them, they're doing a whole bunch of things, or they're getting a lot done. But the reality of it is, in many cases, when we receive coaching or when we receive assistance or help, that coach almost always tells us you haven't been doing enough, or you haven't been doing enough in the right way, right? These things almost always come up. And so when we're thinking about the law of relativity, that's one of the things we want to understand. What is my meaning? What is the meaning I give to my life? How can I shift my perspective concerning myself? And how can I shift my perspective even concerning other people? How I view people. Do I typically think that I know more compared to who? Do I feel like I'm fitter? Do I feel like I'm, in the grand scheme of things, where do you see yourself? How do you view yourself relative to other situations and things? How do you perceive yourself? This is a law of relativity. What is the opposite of my current challenge? If I'm finding something challenging to grasp, something challenging to understand, what is the opposite thing compared to that? Because I know with the law of relativity, my life is going to shift and I'm going to end up feeling the opposite of that. So if I have a specific trauma or something that I allow myself to be a victim in, how will I shift? What is the other side to this? And what is the emotion that I want to feel concerning the opposite of this current situation? How can I take inspired action towards shifting my perspective? How can I immediately start to shift? And I gave you guys an incantation or a prayer last night. How many of you guys used that prayer? Type in the comments I did if you used it already or you found a way to use it. Type in the comments I did if you found a way to use the prayer that I gave you last night or the incantation. or the petition, right? Someone says, Suzanne said, I did, right? Right. Let me know if you actually used it, right? Because there's always a time to use it. There's always a time to use it. Law of relativity proves it. You're going to have a time in your life where you got to shift your perspective, where you've got to look at how you are relative to where you want to be. And then how do I harness unconditional love? In many cases, she says, I found a way this morning. Awesome. And someone else says, I did. And so when we're looking at this, one of the things that we want to be aware of, like I said, is harnessing unconditional love. The reason love is the vibration we want to harness is because in many cases, we stay in a particular vibration almost always based on fear of the unknown, right? Fear of the outcome of something, fear of not being good enough, fear of being good enough, and people expecting more of you, right? We invent fears, right? It's natural to do so, right? And fear is also a vibration. And so it's one of the lowest vibrations, right? When we're looking at things, fear is one of the lowest vibrations. And when when there are tests and studies done concerning things that have fears, they find that fear and the energy of fear is equivalent to something that is getting ready to pass away in nature, right? Something that is dying out, something that is getting ready to transmute into a non-living form, right? That's what fear is equivalent to. And so when we're looking at the vibration opposite of fear, which is love, unconditional love allows us to lean into creative ability. It allows us to see the infinite intelligence within us. It allows us to step into a vibration that allows us to continue to transmute energy into what we can use, right? So real quickly, I'm gonna run to the comments. Tiffany says, I did. Awesome. So I'm gonna go back up and look here at the comments. She says, no catches to this agape love, right? Loving past the pain. We absolutely have to, right? Not physically, but definitely character, personality. Absolutely. I understand. Thank you for sharing this out. She says, it was the absolute worst. I think I know what you're talking about. Thing for the physical type I used to look for in a mate. Man, that thing can tie us to the wrong kinds of things, man. And so I'm glad that everyone had an opportunity to use the incantation or the prayer that you had this morning. As you go away using the law of relativity, know that everything and everybody is facing situations, and it's how they compare these situations relative to the situation that they want to have instead, and how they perceive what this situation actually is. Know that concerning the law of relativity, there is no failure on this planet. I have said this with every universal law. There is only learning. There is only advancement. And in order for us to advance, every single one of us must prove to the universe. In order for a child to wear a bigger size, we don't just go out and buy larger clothes for children. We don't really do that and say, you're 3 months old. I'm going to buy you something that you can wear when you're 10 years old. We intuitively know that that doesn't necessarily make sense at the time, right? And so, in order for anything on this planet and in this universe to advance, there must be proof that we are too big for the space that we're currently in. That is why I say when a person says, I work hard, relative to what? Because if you're still in the space after 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, have you really worked your way out of that space in advance? Now, in some cases, some people do. They climb the ladder and they get to their highest place, and they may be feeling it's time for me to move on to the next best place. But one of the things that lets the universe know that we're ready, everything in us says, I'm too big for this space. I need to stretch out. I need to express God in a different way. I need to stretch out. Every single thing you will find concerning inventions on this planet, someone somewhere had to be too big for the space that they were currently in. So another space had to be created for them. Other inspired actions, ideas, downloads, divine information had to be poured out so that they have room enough to begin to express themselves in a different way. When we use the law of relativity to our advantage concerning our next best space and what we perceive our lives to be and how we want our lives to advance, the question that we must ask is, how am I currently too big for my space? Or am I just comfortable fitting right in? And neither is wrong or right, but the law, just like a baby that has to grow into toddler clothes, that has to grow as an adolescent, that has to grow as a teenager, that has to come of age and come into their 20s, right? And then be an adult. They have to grow in order to fit into the next space, whether it's the next class or group of children, whether it is the next whether it's the next opportunity, whether it's the next clothes. Everything concerning us has to do with advancement. It has to do with growth, and we have to show proof that we're too big for we're too big for the space that we're in, right? We must be too big. Only the advancing man or woman shows proof that they are too big for the space that they're in. When we prove that, then the universe says, okay, now you've got a different perspective. Let's create some space. And the only thing that keeps us from not getting more space created for us to advance is our fears. It is unconditional love for who we will be in the next space that will allow us to advance, okay? And so we want to make sure that when we're looking at this universal law of relativity, that we understand that as human beings in this experience on earth, we are always advancing. And when we prove that we are ready for the next space, our perspective of who we are and the unconditional love that we have for ourselves gives the universe information that says, put me into a different space. Put me into a space that is advancing. Put me into a space where I can continue to grow, where I can have other challenges that let me continue to expand. Okay. Someone says in the comments on Facebook, we don't fail, we learn always. Someone else says too big for the space that we're in. Absolutely. We must prove it. We must prove it. I actually had a conversation with my son. Well, my son had a conversation with me. My son is 15, for those of you who do not know. And he was homeschooled from the time he was 8 years old until now, right? So from third grade up until eighth grade, he was homeschooled. And so he asked to go back into school, public school at that, right? Even before that, he was always in private school, but public school at that, right? And I'm just going to share with you how intuitively knowing that you're too big for a space comes to even children, right? And so this morning before he left, he said, is there any way I can skip a grade? Is there any way I can skip a grade? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I don't feel like I need all 4 years to get prepared for college. I feel like I'm repeating the same information that I was taught in 7th grade. I'm getting that in 9th grade. And I don't feel the need to stay in this grade. If I maintain my 4.0 average, can I be advanced to my junior year? Can I test out of the next year of school? I said, sure, we can find out how to do that for you. And then he said, and it's not just the, and it's so interesting how we're aware, like even children are aware of this. This is a law of relativity, right? Relative to everyone else, Everyone else feels like middle school to me. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be around. I want to find where I can expand. I want to find where I can advance. And I'm naturally attracting people who are juniors and seniors, right? I'm naturally more mature in that way. And that's where I feel like I can grow. But where I currently am, I don't feel the need to stay here. And I don't want to continue in the energy of this group of children, right? I want to be able to advance with people who are more like me. So it's more than just the content that's being shared with me in school, right? He expressed it's more than just the work, it's the people. I need advancement, right? And so if children know this, right? This is a law of relativity. This is how do I perceive my situation and how am I relative to everyone else? I've outgrown this. So let me think clearly about what would be the next best space and the next best fit for me, right? And so when a person is self aware and they feel like I'm going to be okay advancing this way, then they make the necessary, they take inspired action. They make the necessary steps or they put into motion. I'm just going to put it out there. I want to go to senior year after freshman year. Or I want to go to junior year after freshman year. I don't want to move in this way any longer, you know. And so then it is up to me as his parent to make sure he gets tested properly and he gets placed properly, right? And so this is the law of relativity in action. I've never taught the law of relativity to my son. He just knows, right? He just happens to be one of those people who tries to be self-aware, right? Or as much self-aware as he can be, right? And so I say that to say you yourself have your own perspective. You yourself, all of us, know who we are relative to other people. If you're in a place, situation, relationship, connection that you feel you are already too big for, it is time for you to exercise the law of relativity and say, relative to people who are already at this next space, I feel like I might be a better fit there. Where can you fit in the best that feels good to you? And the law of relativity says that you can harness the energy to be able to do so. Okay. Before we hop off tonight, a couple of things I want to say. Number one, if you're watching on IG, there are slides. And if you want those slides, you can text the word hashtag affirm to 404-738-6301. You'll be able to get those slides and you'll be able to save my contact information in addition to getting some other things from me on a daily basis. And then the second thing I want us to do before we hop off of this live stream is to send love and light to someone who is on here with you. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure sharing time and space with you guys. I could stay on here forever, but I won't. So send love and light to someone in the comments here. The moment you see your name, make sure you send love and light back to the person who sent it to you. Okay. Someone says, experiencing now as you speak, my 13-year-old tested out to practice with black belt and she is only a red belt. Exactly, right? Exactly. Someone else says, love and light, Tiffany Taft. Awesome. Sending love and light to everyone. Listen, I never take it lightly to be able to teach or to be able to share information with you. Okay. And so thank you all for sharing time and space with me. We get to do this at this time on the planet, right? This is what we get to do. This is the energy that we get to share and that we get to learn in. And I'm ever so grateful for it. Please have an incredible, incredible night and enjoy your Friday tomorrow.